Welcome back to American Agenda. I'm Bob Sellers here with Allison Maloney. President Biden getting a lot of mixed reactions after giving his first joint address to Congress last night. But if you watch the mainstream media, some say that Biden's speech appeared to be nothing short of a miracle.
It was a make America feel good night, make America feel pride night.
There were some real moments of bipartisan appeal.
Yeah, it got philosophical at the end.
He was so passionate about human rights that we have not heard in the State of the Union in some time, or a joint session speech.
Or you can soothe them into listening to you. And he was like having a conversation with the American people.
All right, joining us to grade President Biden's speech is analyst at the Young Americans for Liberty, Kristen Tate, and Democratic strategist Kelly Hyman, also Newsmax correspondent Alex Salvi. So, Kristen, I'll start with you. Your grade.
Well, I give him a failing grade. I mean, this speech was just, essentially, it felt like we were moving away from the Declaration of Independence to the Declaration of Dependence. It's all about getting people hooked on the federal government, making the government just the main part of human life, expanding subsidies to an unseen level and blowing out the spending. That's what this is all about. And of course, we saw so many people there wearing masks. We saw Kamala Harris and Nancy Pelosi standing behind the president wearing what is now a political symbol. And it's become clear that the president and his allies want to keep the COVID panic going in order to justify this irresponsible spending that's getting a record number of Americans hooked on checks from the federal government. So I found this speech, although it was boring to watch, the substance of it was terrifying. But the fact is, the Democrats need someone boring like Joe Biden to deliver these radical messages because, you know, Joe just comes off as this moderate, likable guy. And if you heard the same messages coming from someone like Kamala Harris or AOC, many Americans might not feel as comfortable with it.
Yeah. Kelly, I want to get your reaction to Fox News host Chris Wallace and his opinion about how Americans feel about government. Take a listen.
People have come to have a different feeling about government, that they now feel more trusting and more the need of government.
Kelly, do you agree that people are more trusting of government?
Well, I'm not quite sure about that. I think it's important. I believe the Biden speech was not a failing grade, but an A+ grade. He spoke to the American people. He spoke to the American people about what their concerns and what's going on with them. And I think it was very inspirational. It was very truthful. It was very inspiring. And I'm looking forward to the Democrats and the Republicans working together on his proposals and bringing them forth so he can sign them.
Alex, these people watch the same speech and justifying what they're saying completely differently. I was curious how you saw it.
Yeah, so I watched it last night and again this morning because I have no social life, I guess. But when you watch it again, when it comes to substance, Joe Biden is asking to spend the same amount of money in his first year that the Trump administration did in the full tenure. So when we look at really the immediacy of what he's asking for, this isn't just a vision like many of these speeches are. This is something that the Democratic Party needs to figure out what they want to prioritize. I mean, we heard all of the big, expansive agenda items that they want to push through, and we also know that there's H.R. 1 that they want to get through, and we're even hearing from many Democratic strategists, James Carville most recently saying that many Democrats are not optimistic about 2022, let alone 2024, and it's looking more and more likely that Joe Biden is going to be a one-term president. So Democrats need to figure out what priority they want, the same way that the Trump administration did back in 2017 when they had the Senate and the House of Representatives. They went with tax cuts, but now Democrats really need to figure out what type of item they do want to go with, because there's H.R. 1, infrastructure, the Jobs, Families Act, whatever you want to call them. There's so many that they need to get to in so little time.
Yeah, you're right. There's a lot on the table. Kristen, I want to get your take, the reaction to President Biden appearing to lose his train of thought. Take a listen.
When I was president, when I was vice president, the president asked me to focus on providing help needed to address the root causes of migration. Vice President Harris and I met regularly in the Oval Office with Democrats and Republicans and discussed the jobs plan.
Kristen, I want to get your reaction because, you know, we've seen President Biden speak before and lose his train of thought. He's called VP Harris, the President Harris. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, we all have known for about a year now that Joe Biden is not aging well. I mean, people age at different paces, right? And he's clearly losing his mental acuity. He used to be a fantastic speaker back in his prime, and he's just not that way anymore. He dodders, he loses his train of thought, he's a gaffe machine, and that's just what we've come to expect. So the bar is just so low for the president now that if he can stand up there for an hour and not make, some really huge, horrifying, embarrassing mistake, everyone considers it this big win and says, oh, that was the best speech he's made for his presidency. It's just a really pathetically low standard. Yeah. But I do feel bad for him because he's clearly deteriorating mentally.
He probably trying to appeal to a certain base of his, and Kelly, you may be part of that. I wanted to show Senator Ted Cruz joined Wake Up America right here on Newsmax to discuss the Cruz snooze.
Look, the speech went over an hour, and it was boring. I'm amazed I stayed awake as long as I did. And Joe Biden didn't give a damn. He didn't want our applause. It was a speech that was directed to the Democrats, and it was, we are hard left, the socialist regime is here. And I think that's one of the reasons the speech was so boring, is there was nothing, it was so left-wing that there was nothing for any reasonable person to applaud for.
The thing about it, Kelly, is if he has this big liberal agenda, or let's just call it the Biden agenda, he's still got to get it through Congress, and you would think he would try to bring some other people in, but he did seem to be just targeting those that were left of center and pretty far left.
Well, I would disagree with you on that. Everyone knows that Biden is a moderate Democrat.
What he's proposing, Kelly, he may be the nicest guy in the world. But what he's proposing, $4 trillion more in spending, is not moderate.
Well, I would disagree with you on that. And we have to remember about the infrastructure. It helps the American people. And how he wants to pay for it is by the taxes on the corporations. We have to remember when Trump took office, he lowered the corporate tax from 28% to 21%, and Biden wants to increase it. So that will not cost any of the taxpayers any money at all.
Well, those taxpayers are also the customers. Where do you think that's covered? I mean, going from 21 to 28%. I'm sorry. I'll let you finish, Kelly.
I don't think that's going to affect the customers. I think the corporations have gotten rich under the Trump administration, and that's what's going to help. But he's also going to build jobs in the infrastructure as well. Jobs for people that don't have college education.
What you're hearing right now is the mindset of the new Democratic Party. Anti-capitalism, anti-corporation, and ultimately anti-worker, because we know that 60 to 80% of corporate taxes are passed down to the workers. This is the mindset of the new Democratic Party. Government good, private sector bad, and it's very destructive.
See, Kristen's better at saying what I wanted to say. So, thank you so much, Kristen Tate, Kelly Hyman, and Alex Salvi. Thank you so much for joining us. All right.